What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Danny the Bull, here with my boy, Daniel Lee. How are you doing, Daniel?
Good, man. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I'm all good. How's your winter going in Oklahoma?
It snowed the past couple weeks, like more like ice and sleet. So that's like for us, that's like kind of hard to deal with. We don't have the infrastructure to deal with snow, but we've had some snow the past couple days, but
Typically, you guys
doing
don't
well.
get a lot of snow?
We might get a good snow maybe two, maybe three times a year. It might be like a couple inches or so, and that's not a big deal for like a city like New York or
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but for us, it's like there's not many trucks. It cancels school. Clinic gets canceled. All sorts of things seems to happen.
Yeah. We've had a moderate winter over here, thankfully, in New York. We usually get like a big storm.
Yeah.
So far, it's been kind of warm and
Has it snowed yet? Actually, in New York, I read an
no.
article that that's like the first time in a long time.
Yeah, this is like the most moderate, mild winter we've had here in a long time since I can remember. Even the weather's not even like cold. It's like it's decent.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
Unlike crypto winter.
Which never seems to go away, right? Until winter.
So, thanks for coming on. We have some recent things to talk about, which is pretty good with the community update that was released just yesterday. So I wanted to start with that actually and talk about, they unveiled their new logo and design. What do you think of all of that? What do you think of the new branding that they have?
Yeah, I'll be honest. I kind of favor the older designs, but all in all, I kind of talked to you about this a little earlier today,
Mhm.
but I think it's kind of bullish because really, when you look at the designs, the color choices, the motto, I don't think they came up with this kind of on the fly. I don't think Alex just came up with this and chose random colors. I think they had a marketing company come in and just do an overhaul and kind of create or I guess kind of create a company culture. So when I look at something like this, I look at it and think this is kind of a change and a pivot to how they were doing business previously and kind of shows us kind of where they want to go in the future. So even though you can make jokes about the design and things like that, I think overall it's bullish and I think it's going to change how we perceive VEVE going forward in the next couple of years.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, a lot of people, I'm not really fond of the design yet, but I think that's also because it's new. And anytime there's a change up in presentation, we're just not used to it. The hearts kind of looks like paper mache to me. I do like the collectors at heart logo. And I do agree that
Yeah.
it's bullish in the fact that they have marketing in mind and they have that plan now. And that's something that's on the table. I do think that it got drowned out a little bit and amidst the lack of big news coming out of the update. What are your thoughts on your overall impression of that update? Because I was looking forward to it heading into it.
Yeah, there's little bits and pieces that they threw out there, but all in all, it's kind of a nothing burger in terms of what the community was expecting. I was kind of hoping it would be in line with some of the previous, the past 3 or 4 updates where they kind of gave some timelines, and they kind of definitely didn't. So that's kind of the biggest thing I think people are disappointed about is just kind of the lack of definitive timelines. And I think because of the community, I think the community has some serious PTSD when it comes to, Ecomi VV timelines. So that kind of really added kind of fuel to the fire. Just the uncertainty of not knowing, we're going to get these things that they've talked about. Is it going to be another year? I think that's what's kind of frustrating the community right now. But I mean, all in all, I think it's good. I liked seeing Mitch over there. I
Mhm.
like that kind of personal touch where they all kind of showed their favorite collectibles. I think it's good overall. I feel like they're starting to. I mean, maybe this will sound bad, but I feel like they're starting to kind of really come together in terms of a company now um, than just a couple years ago.
Yeah, I think so too. I think there are obviously some growing pains here. They have put some pieces in place that I think are very bullish. The question is like, are they a little late on it? In terms of, positives from that video, what stood out to you? Did you like like they had the KYC, they're like kind of like removing that barrier a little bit. in terms of KYC. They've got the merge coming. They've got the wait list shift happening. What are the biggest positives that you got out of that?
I think the KYC thing is really actually huge, because I feel like a lot of people when they get on the app, they just want to buy something really quick, or they're just watching for a while. And to have that KYC barrier up kind of really limits those sales. And really, it's limiting kind of their own revenue, right? If someone just wants to buy something, doesn't even want to cash out, they just want to buy something, KYC really hinders that. So it kind of makes sense. And really, KYC guidelines are really to limit, to control kind of the inflow and outflow of money. So I think having it for cash out, or having that enabled for cash out really makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Last week when I spoke to Kay, he said that he wanted the team to market to crypto people,
Yeah.
and that's where they would get like the most bang for their buck. In the update, they talked about their marketing strategy, and they said they'd be going after fandoms, right? Like the Disney collectors. I'm assuming like Marvel collectors, DC collectors. Do you think that'll be an effective strategy? Are non-crypto people likely to be onboarded to VEVE, in your opinion?
Yeah, I don't really like just trying to market to crypto people, because really that pool of people is kind of really small. When you talk about mainstream, marketing to the mainstream, what does that mean? It really means non-crypto people. So you, I think I was talking to someone else about this, but we really need to see children eventually. I think, and when I say kids, anywhere from, I don't know, 9 to 16. I
Mhm.
think that's a key demographic where if you can get that group of people on and using VEVE, then I think this would be a potentially huge app. I think everything would start to look really good in terms of collectibles. The vault values would go up. OMI token would be used more, therefore, value of OMI would go up. And really, I think the best way to really do that is we need more than just the VEVE app. We need the VEVE verse. When you look at something like Roadblocks, I was playing around with that. I wanted to kind of do a video about that, but I decided not to. But what that is it's people can make their own games, and they can have all these interesting experiences. Hundreds of different types of games and just ways to communicate. And I think if we had something like that with the VEVE verse, people can go to VEVE, buy a collectible they like. Maybe that can become an avatar, or maybe there's an avatar associated with that. I think that would be the key demographic to get. I think that's what VEVE should focus on, and I think that's what they're going to do. I don't think they should just cater to crypto people.
Yeah. Do you see a time like, we've heard like, the long-term objective is like, 100 million people in VEVE. Do you think that's realistic, or is it a pipe dream? Will we ever see that sort of mass adoption, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think so. If this was any other NFT project, I would probably say no. But you have all these different license types, right? You got Disney, Marvel. Those are big brands that people actively, seek. So I think because of that, they definitely have the ability to do that going forward.
Yeah. Especially if they got the kids involved, right? Like you said.
Yeah, yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So you talked about your thoughts on Mitch. You like the guy, correct?
Yeah.
Do you think, and they've increased the dev team recently, right? Doubling it. Do you think it's too little, too late?
Yeah, that's very speculative to consider, because we don't even know how big the dev team is, right?
Mhm.
Is it 4 people? Is it 12 people? But sorry, what was the question again?
Does doubling up, like, should they have done this last year? The building out the dev team and building out the team,
Yeah.
getting someone like Mitch on board, a new CTO. Should this have been done last year?
Yeah, I think it should have, but it seems like the biggest weakness Vivi had was they didn't really have the technical capabilities to create the things that we wanted, that the founders wanted. And you know, we could probably speculate that it might have something to do with the technical leadership at the time. Maybe they overestimated their capabilities.
Mhm.
So it should have been done before, but these are one of the things they have to learn and kind of learn from is that they need to get the right people for the job. So they have a new CTO, they have a new product manager. This is something that I think every kind of company needs to go through in terms of their technical team.
Yeah. Do you think part of it is a byproduct of growing too fast?
Yeah, I don't know. They did grow really, really fast, but they also had, in 2021 they had a lot of things they wanted to deliver on, right? They wanted
Mhm.
VeVeVerse and OMI token utility. So that's kind of on them, right?
Yeah. Now on them is it's time to deliver, right? Everyone's been waiting for Master Collectors Program, OUP, VeVeVerse. These are all Q1 priorities. I know Reese was in a Telegram earlier, and he said that as far as he knows, the VeVeVerse is still on track to be delivered in quarter 1. What are your expectations for quarter 1? Do you think that these things roll out?
I believe it, man. I believe when Reese says that, because it's different. We were in Anaheim and we actually saw the demo. This is a product that we actually saw, was relatively cool, I think. I mean, I really enjoyed my experience there. So when he says something like that, I really believe it could happen, because we know for a fact that there is kind of a VeVeVerse developer, right? That's
Mhm.
out there. How do you feel about that?
Um, yeah, I'm an optimistic person. I'm always like, and I met the team. I know that they're working. I believe that the long-term vision will come to fruition. But again, when you're used to the delays, you also get, the feeling that it's just gonna be another delay. I'm setting myself up to get let down because it's gonna be pushed back. Long term, it doesn't really matter as long as the things come out, right? And we saw that with MTL, a period of time when there was so much FUD in the community because people were questioning whether they would ever even do it. People were like, the biggest FUD was coming through when MTL wasn't here yet, right? People were saying that they couldn't cash people out, that sort of thing, and that they had no intention to cash people out. And then they did, and now that narrative is put to rest, and everyone has just accepted that MTL is here. Same thing will happen to all of these rollouts, as they come out. So I'm cautiously optimistic that it'll come out. I'm a patient person. I do want to see them execute on something, and I think that's important. I think it's important for the community. Those are my thoughts. Of the three, which do you want most? OUP, MCP, VeVeVerse in quarter 1?
I really want VeVeVerse. I think OMI token utility, I think that it will take the whole year for them to have even a few pieces of it actually able to be used. Like, I think something even as quote unquote easy as, bronze tickets, I think that could be potentially technically challenging to roll out. There's a lot of quirks with that, right? A lot of systems that have to be refined. So, um, I mostly want them to deliver on things that they actually say they will. If they say quarter 1, then I would like for it to happen sometime this year. And really, that's the thing that I've been really excited about most is actually the VeVeVerse, because once we get a taste of what that looks like, I think we'll have a very clear view of where the token is going. So I think eventually, they'll get the OMI OUP, they'll get the OMI to NFT and the ticket system. I think that will all come, but we need to see how it's going to be used, right? I think the use case for OMI is a little weaker when it comes to VeVe. But once you see the VeVeVerse and what you can possibly do, you can buy accessories, you can actually build your own experiences. That's what I'm incredibly bullish on, I think, overall.
Yeah. And shout out to Zach. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. Um, what so in order to make the VeVeVerse sticky, right? In order to make people not only go in there one time, two times, make it a part of their lives, what needs to happen in your opinion? And we've touched on this a bit in our weekly, around the Ecomiverse um, channel, but what are your thoughts on really making it a place that people want to go to? Because I have an Oculus headset, and I used it in August when I got it. I bought it for myself for my birthday. And I used it that first week, but I haven't used it since. What would make me want to put on like a headset or glasses and get in there?
Yeah, I think that's actually interesting because that's my experience too. Is I got a Oculus for Christmas. Actually, this was last year. Actually, now that I think about it, and I bought a few games. There's some things I didn't like about it. I got dizzy,
Yeah.
but the games are cool, but not cool enough for me to keep playing. And then I just kind of put it away since. And I have thought about that because if that's kind of the experience for VR headsets, then that's potentially a big problem. And VR has had that problem for decades. People have tried to build VR games and VR headsets with really not a lot of success. But have you ever heard of VR chat? I think you
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
So I'm in this group that they do like I have actually had a session with them, unfortunately, but they do these kind of VR chat sessions, and I was exploring VR chat a little bit, and that's actually really really cool. It's completely free, but there's different worlds you can potentially explore, and I think if they can build an ecosystem where you are able to make friends in a very kind of topical way, if you like
Mhm.
anime, you go to this anime type world, you talk to people who like the same anime you do, you make friends, then it becomes really, really sticky. I mean, social media is kind of like that too. But the downside about social media is I feel like it kind of misses that human element. Whereas I think if something like VR chat or the VVverse can create um, a social media type platform where you feel like you're really making real connections, I think that would be incredibly key to really blow up this ecosystem and develop that out a little bit more.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I kind of agree there. I think it would be dope, to have, like community gatherings, a karaoke party with Alex in the VV verse, a spaces type of environment in the VV verse also. You have a bet with Randy. You had a bet with Randy. I think you won it, right?
I did win it. I actually haven't collected or asked him about it. I kind of forgot.
What
But
was that bet?
the bet was, will the VVverse come out in 2022? And we did this bet really, I think in January of 2022. And of course, it didn't come out. But yeah, I have to collect on that actually. I have to hit him up. It was supposed to be for a steak dinner.
Would you bet him double or nothing that it's VV verse phase 1 will drop in quarter 1?
That's a tough bet. I mean, I feel like statistically you should bet against Vivi because of their track record. So I guess that's what I would bet against them because I don't think it's going to be right at the end of March 31st. I think it's going to be like mid-April, maybe even May, because those aren't really like really concrete timelines, right? It's kind of a general range. So sometime within quarter 1, bleeding into quarter 2. So that's a bet I would make just based off their track record. But I'm really going for him. And even when I did that bet with Randy, I told him I really want to lose because I really want to see the VVverse. This is something I've been waiting for since I started doing these videos in 2021. I was waiting for it.
Yeah.
Man, I can't believe it's been that long. Actually, now
Crazy, right?
I know.
And what
I,
kind
you
of
know,
stick? Yeah.
I kind of understand people who FUD the project a little bit. I kind of understand where they're coming from, because if you came in 2019 or whatever it was, maybe early 2020, you've heard this same spiel for like 3 years now, maybe even a little bit longer than that. So we've only been in since like 2021, middle of 2021, something like that. We've
Hmm.
only been hearing this for about a year and a half, going into 2 years. But these people have been in it for 3-4 years. So I don't know. I think it puts it into perspective, kind of when you understand where some of them are coming from.
Yeah, for sure. Um, Another thing that they talked about was the wait list, right? And how it'll level the playing field. Why do you think they waited so long to put the wait list into play? Because I remember months back, they said that the queue system was, it's ready to go and they just have to, it's just a matter of rolling it out. And, they didn't. And I think that little things like that, right, are kind of what helps create the FUD and negative sentiment. What do you think the thought process is? Do you think it's a matter of juggling so many balls and just trying to prioritize? Or, what do you think their thought process is there? And I know that's speculative.
Yeah, I feel like this is a good question for Kay because I'm not
Yeah.
technically inclined, but I feel like something as easy as the queue system has a lot of like underlying processes that I don't think they wanted to risk their drops, because I don't know if some of those drops might be contracted out, because people kind of crap on Vivi for just putting out these drops despite the fact that they have all these other problems, I guess. But I feel like they have to keep the drops going either from a revenue perspective or a contractual perspective. So they don't want to mess with that unless they're 100% certain that it's going to be, all the kinks are going to be worked out. And, we have to expect some problems. I mean, even with some of the other projects like, who is it that does like kind of Palm? They do some drop
Yeah.
systems too, and that was, or queue systems, and that was kind of messed up
It was
too.
kind of
So
I mean, I was there for the Superman one. That one was kind of a disaster.
yeah, and so I think that's part of any sort of development is you're going to expect bugs and kind of delays. So that's probably why they didn't want to mess with that. And then they had all the other things that popped up, like, they had to look for maybe potentially a new payment provider, like Wire. That was there's always like curveballs that are thrown their way that they have to like adapt. And I
Yeah.
kind of get it. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. Did you see that tweet from what's his name? The guy from Colex, Gavin
Yeah,
Weeks,
Gavin. Yeah.
where he was talking about the intricacies of a search bar.
No, I didn't see that.
So a lot of people were, talking about the search bar has been kind of like an ongoing joke or whatever, that they haven't been able to execute a search bar. And then he tweeted out just everything that's involved with it, all the small details and how difficult a small thing can be. And I think it's interesting to get that sort of insight. And I think that if they, had more talks, around that technical insight, that giving us that technical insight, people would be a little more understanding. What do you think? Or do
Yeah.
you think they would still FUD?
I talked to someone, Sleep in Comics,
Yeah.
and he made it sound like a search bar. So he's actually technical, like that's his background. I don't know his entire like profession or anything, but he has a technical background. So he has an understanding of something like this. And he made it sound like it's a little bit easier. It's easier than it is difficult, I guess, for lack of a better word, to put out something like that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I really can't speculate on that too much.
Yeah. Did you catch the Reese interview with on Crypto Rain's channel?
Briefly, yeah. Just kind of got some of the highlights.
What do you think about we've been obviously look in terms of OMI, we've been anticipating the burn from circulating supply. And I think most of us thought that we'd be burning from circulating supply, by this time. When do you think we actually get, some decent burns going?
I want to say, if I was a betting man, I would say the end of this year, because I really feel like it will take a lot of time for the developers to roll out OUP. So I think maybe a few pieces we'll see kind of by the end of this year. So I don't think we'll see that much burning actually because of that. Because I think by that time we have a lot of utility, the only price should be a lot higher. It's kind of unfortunate, under the old system, we would be burning quite a bit. And I get the legal aspect. I'm not trying to go down that road. There's a reason why they're not doing that, but it is unfortunate. I feel like by the time we get solid utility, price will be a lot higher, either back to 2021, 2022 levels.
And then we'll burn less. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You did a video on just a speculative video on the amount of OMI they could burn through. What's your expectation? Do you think that they'll burn through a whole bunch of OMI? I know I remember when they first announced the article, I was chatting with Kay, and he was super bullish. He was talking about how they're going to burn through a shit ton of OMI, especially when the VV verse comes out. And then I know Reese said that I think he said like 50% of circulating supply they'll burn through within 10 years or something like that. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that they'll be able to burn through a bunch of it?
I'm kind of hesitant to say, because I've always had this fear that with the Vverse right now, they've said that OMI is going to be the exclusive payment token for the VVverse. But I've had this fear that might be too difficult for the mainstream people. They have to figure out a way to make it super easy. And I know that having OMI within the VV app is one way to potentially solve that problem. But that's still kind of a complicated, even that's a simple Web3 process, right? Have a wallet you attach to whatever you're using, or like connect your wallet up, and then you can kind of make these transactions. But that's still really hard to use compared to, Web2, where you just take your credit card and apply it. So I have a fear that they're not going to go all in on OMI being the exclusive payment token, and they're going to allow people to use their credit card to, make payments directly. They might have that gem system kind of in the background. And so as a result of a fear like that, I feel like they won't burn as many tokens as we thought they would maybe in 2021, 2022, years ago when we didn't know any better. So I think 50% in 10 years is quite a bit. And I know that sounds kind of bearish. I don't know. What do you think?
I think, it's hard to say until we see the features roll out and exactly how much each feature, each mechanism can burn through. I think that the ticket system, the bronze tickets, they can sell a lot of those. And I think that they will. I think that if all of the accessories in the VVverse lead to OMI burns, if you look at Roblox does like $40 billion a year in revenue strictly off microtransactions, right? So if they are able to attract, even like, 10 million people into VV, and those people are all making microtransactions on a weekly basis for their avatar, for their showrooms, and all that burns OMI. I think that it's possible, but again, it's something that we have to see first. What part of the system of the OUP, the new OUP, are you most bullish on?
Yeah, I haven't thought about that for some time, but I do like the ticket system. I think it's the one that makes the most logical sense. I think that's easy to explain to people. I mean, an NFT is kind of cool, but I feel like with crypto pay-in, it kind of limits that a little bit. I would have liked, I guess, to have just OMI being used for that, just OMI pay-in. But that's kind of, when you do that, I think that limits how much revenue you can potentially make. That saying they have, that collectors at heart, that new thing, that kind of got me thinking that I wonder if they're permanently going to reduce the edition sizes for collectibles, because really the way you make it exciting again, you have to mimic the 2021 timeframe, where if getting drops is hard, but if you got it, you could actually make really good money, and for some people, like life-changing money. I'm thinking like the Walt, the MC1. So if they do it like that, if they truly think of it as it's for collectors, so limited edition, I think that could potentially bring, quite a bit of interest back into the app. And I think the only way we survive is collectors right now, their vault values have to go up. And really, that's the only way I can see doing it. You make a lot of money by blowing up the edition sizes, by 10xing the edition sizes. That's how you make a lot of revenue. But that's not how you create a really sticky, really fun ecosystem that we had. I mean, I really want to go back to those days where, man, if you got a drop, that's great, and you're already in the money. Whereas right now, when you think about it, um, even if bronze tickets and things like that were already available, would you actually be buying bronze tickets to get these drops? Absolutely not,
No, yeah.
because there's not a lot of interest right now. But eventually, the interest will come back, and if they keep the edition sizes just like how they are, uh, that's when we'll see a lot of OMI potentially being used, because that's the only way to get an edge. There's also the MCP, of course, but that would create a really fun, vibrant ecosystem. And I think if that happens, if you truly reward the collectors, you give them things that are really valuable, I think that's when you create something that could be, just amazing to see.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember back when, and shout out, we got a super chat here from Maxwell, some beer money. Appreciate you, Maxwell. Thank you. I remember back when, there was the whole thing over the edition sizes, because edition size, like the Boba Fett, like the edition sizes were like blown out. And a lot of people were upset about the edition sizes, sucking liquidity out of the secondary market, et cetera. I thought about the sneaker industry and how,
Yeah, it's good.
like Kanye, who kind of like fell off, like went like nuts, right? Got canceled. But think about like the Yeezy brand, right? The Yeezy brand blew up, and Nike employed this as well by limiting supply and making sneaker drops highly sought after. If you look at Supreme, clothing brand, it's super hard to land anything in Supreme, and that makes it exclusive. That makes it, sought after. People want it more. So I do think that there's something to be said, and that happens either from scaling the number of people, right, going for the drop, or from reducing edition sizes. So I do agree that they should be dynamic in how they're doing that. Someone else brought up Pokemon cards, how for a period of time, I guess Pokemon was, the card industry was flailing a little bit, and Pokemon, they actually reduced the number of cards they were releasing for a period of time. And now those are more sought after as well. So it's a really good point.
Yeah, like using the card example, I had a friend who visited me from Michigan actually, and he said he's a Magic the Gathering fan and player, but what he has said that is that whoever owns Magic, they just kind of the same thing. They just did the opposite of Pokemon. They just flooded the market full of cards, and in the short term, you can make a lot of money because the users, the collectors, they don't really initially realize that they're being diluted like that. But once they realize that, I mean, the values of these things kind of go into the crapper. But one way, VeVe could still make money. They could still make money on the back end and for their licensors, is because they can collect money on the secondary market. So maybe they don't make as much money on the primary, but remember when Walt was like, 50
Yeah.
grand, and that's a lot of money, man. I mean,
Yeah.
in
And
fees.
it's changing hands like all the way up, right?
Yeah.
So it's changing hands at 18 grand, 19 grand, 20 grand.
Yeah. Anyways, that's the advantage that you have these digital collectibles. That's the advantage of that, is you collect money on the secondary, and like in perpetuity, right? Just till the end
Yeah.
of time, as long as people are still buying and selling. So it's just something to think about. And I don't know what caused. I think they were experimenting when they kind of increased the edition sizes. They're trying to play with that market a little bit. I'm glad they do it now rather than
Yeah.
later,
Do you think it
to
was
kind of,
also from like that gem exploit and they had to recover those funds?
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Right? Because they got, they got scammed out of all that money.
Yeah, shout out to Javier. I wonder if that was the main reason. I mean, that's definitely a great side effect for them, right? When they were kind of produced all these gems that aren't backed by money. They're all fraud gems essentially. Um, yeah, I don't know if that's why they did that or if they're experimenting, but obviously they still have the data regardless of their intention. They still kind of learn something from that, right?
And that's also that's a good point. This whole space is nascent, and, they're learning as they go. and you learn what you do to the whole market with, the large edition size drops, and it's kind of like finding the happy middle ground. We got Justin in the house. Justin says the circles were an awful decision. He's talking about the progress bars in for the OMI utility program. What do you feel about? Do you agree with Justin there?
I think it's better than nothing, but I remember talking to Dan Schwabel, I guess, but his idea a long time ago was to have these progress bars with the percentages. And I don't know if they took his idea or not, but I would have preferred maybe like a percentage, something more objective. I think the circles are just to convey just some sort of just generalness, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it's better than nothing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters that much, to be honest, but I don't know.
We got calls to bring Kay on the live stream. Should we bring Kay on the live stream?
Yeah,
Kay,
man, bring him on. He's always
Kay, you want to join the live streams? Say yes or no, buddy. Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of and I think it was Schwabel who said that, right? Who brought up the progress thing.
Yeah.
And I like it, but it's got to get, the circle's got to move a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and who's doing that too? Like, is it based off technical timelines? Like, if this is done, then it's like 20%, or is it subjective? Like, we're almost there. Okay, let's just, we'll crank the circle up a little bit. It's really subjective, so therefore, it's not really useful, right?
Yeah. Jayco says VEVE's resting on their laurels. Very dangerous this early on. Do you think that's what's been going on? Resting on their laurels, complacency?
No, man. I think they were such a hit that from 2021 onward, they're just trying to catch up. And I think really right now they've gotten to a point where they have a little bit of breathing room, and they're really trying to take care of us now in terms of what we want. Man, because those guys weren't sleeping, man. I mean, you saw them in there in Anaheim just like me. They must have been super tired, jet lagged, but they were they hung out all day with us, and then we saw them at the parties. I mean, that's tough to run like that for a year and a half. So I don't know.
Yeah, and seeing them and seeing the whole thing and going to the con events, it really does give you different perspective, because you do see them and you see how nonstop it is, constant running around, and you see like the bags under their eyes and all that. So you know that they're really working hard. It's just a matter of, from my opinion, I don't think that they were able to scale early on appropriately. And now it's a matter of whether or not they can do it now.
Yeah, part of that too is, I'm sure when they sat down, like when they first released the app, actually, I know this is like the case. They didn't expect the success that they had in 2021, right? So their idea of what this app would look like is not what it is today. It's super popular still, even in the bear market. It's still a really popular app. They're still making great revenue. I don't think they could have anticipated that. So I think they've been trying to catch up really since the beginning there.
Yeah. Back to OUP. Did you say what part of it you were most bullish on?
I don't know. I really like the tickets a lot. That's kind of my big thing. Really, I don't know how much I can say of this, but really, I am really looking forward to the VeVeVerse utility, because I think that's when the sky is potentially the limit, right? They don't have to kind of get some licensor to sign off on certain things. They're just whatever their brain can think of is what they could potentially introduce into the VeVeVerse once that's all created and solidified. So that's what I'm really bullish on, is really that the utility we aren't hearing about just yet, because they have a lot of ideas. We've talked to some people that kind of gave us signals that they had plenty of ideas of what they wanted to do with OMI token going forward. And it's flexible, right? It's not the OUP we just heard about is not all we're going to potentially see. We're going to see more to that, and it's going to evolve over time. So I don't know. We should see, an acceleration of OMI usage and utility as time goes on, as we get into this decade.
Yeah. Any parts of it that you're bearish on?
probably just like you, the legal aspect, we still don't have that clarity from the government. I think you and I were talking about the
Mhm.
library credits
Yeah.
in the SEC battle there. We kind of got a little bit of a victory, but still, there's just a lot we have to know before I become super bullish on it.
Yeah. And here we go. We got the yellow
Hey,
K
What's
in the
good?
house. What's going on,
How's it
brother?
going?
How
Yeah,
you
I'm
been?
good. I'm good. How are you?
All good.
What's the convo about? I'm guessing it's OMI
Um,
related.
yeah, we started talking about the community update, and we've just been touching on a bunch of things. What was your impression of the community update? Do you like the new heart? Are you in love with it?
Uh, no, not really. I'm
why
not a
why
fan.
not?
So okay. If I put aside the fact that it looks like some kind of weird dating app on my phone, or like you know
Yeah.
what, our health service called the NHS, right? They use the blue heart as well, like for one of their apps, like if you need like emergency care or if you like need to log like COVID data, and so it stresses me out looking at it because I feel like I'm clicking on it and I'm like,
Oh, it does kind of look like
I
that.
feel like I'm, doing something related to my health. Like it's weird. But yeah, that's besides the point. Like, apart from that, right, is the core demographic of people who would most likely be using the VV stuff as of right now, and who'd be using the VV stuff probably in the short to mid term, right? I'm not going to talk about like long term, like short to mid term is the demographic is males between the ages of 25 and 40. That's the majority demographic, right? And having multicolored hearts it's not like doesn't scream to me metaverse or like, you know, something like Web3 related. It screams to me like, weird dating app. And so I'm not really a fan. It's like and the branding itself has been very inconsistent. Like I don't know why they opted for like so many different colors. Like if I mean,
I'm gonna
I'm
pull it
not a
up.
brand
I think
expert,
it's just
but
like hues of blue, right?
no, they've got like an orange one, a
Yeah, they have
green
different
one, a
colors.
purple one. And if you go on the YouTube page, there's like 4 different colors of them, and it just looks like you know when you're like a kid in school and you discover like the rainbow effects in Microsoft Paint. It's like
Mm.
it's like that. It's like they just went crazy with the colors, and yeah, I've spoken to people who are brand experts, and all of them have they haven't been like fans, or they've suggested improvements, right? And some of their improvements are pretty good. Like they can make it look somewhat, I guess, more appealing to people like myself. Um, there was one that someone did that looked really cool. It was like this kind of futuristic, kind of sort of metallic V, and I was like, that's kind of cool because when I look at that, I think of like cutting edge, something in the future, and metaverses, and that for me is like, you know, cool.
That's what you're going for. That's what they should have gone for, in your opinion. I didn't think of the heart not appealing to the male audience.
Well,
Yeah,
but they also don't want, in my opinion, I don't think Vivi wants their audience to just be 18 to 35-year-olds who are into
yeah,
crypto, right? That's
Valid
not
point.
like the mass market. But on the flip side, I do agree with you. I don't think a heart actually appeals to. I don't even know what that appeals to. Does that appeal to children? Does it appeal to females? I don't know. I really couldn't tell you.
I
I
guess
To be
it
mean,
honest.
ties into their logo, collectors at heart. I guess that came first, and then they're like, we'll put a heart in there, right?
yeah, I think they should have really looked at online platforms that have mass appeal across all age ranges and males and females, right? And a good example is League of Legends, because they've changed their logo quite a lot across the past, 10 years or however long they've been around, right? And actually, it's been longer than 10 years now, I think. But yeah, like they've always kind of they had like that really kind of old school World of Warcraft looking logo, and then they realized, oh hey, our demographics changed to like heavily females as well, because when Twitch came around, way more female streamers jumped on, and they found it like they changed like the content within the platform to have like more kind of, I guess, appealing characters to like the generic female gamers, and then they kind of opted for their logo to become like
what's a generic
more,
female gamer?
like
Choose your words
like,
wisely.
like the Pokemains and like those ones out there, like and they like the kind of cutesy kind of stuff. And I mean, like I'm stereotyping, but like that kind of stuff, right? Whereas like if you look at the old school characters in League of Legends, they were like very like proper, like World of Warcrafty kind of like muscly weird creatures and all that stuff.
Look
so,
at
yeah,
this.
like,
Look at this comic from Blockchain Comics. The logo looks like diabetic cardiac awareness logo for elderly Asian community.
And I can relate.
Yeah. I mean, it did actually. That's the first thing I thought about was our health service app, because it's just really similar looking to that, like a blue heart. But yeah, League of Legends, they've changed their logo to look still like kind of sleek, right? Like it's the L, but it's less kind of World of Warcrafty looking and more like kind of not plain, but like it looks sleek, like kind of what's the word? Like it's like can apply to like anyone. Like it just looks
Universal.
cool. Universal, that's the word. Yes, it's very universal. And I don't think VEVE's for the kind of demographic that they're currently kind of catering towards is like universal enough, I'd say. And to be honest, like the merch with a blue heart on it, like I don't think it looks as cool as like.
So you guys buying that? Are you guys gonna rock that?
As the classic logo.
What if they had the heart and then the new VEVE logo in the middle of the heart? Would that be better?
I don't know. Like I get what they're trying to do. I think, yeah, they would. I think if they had a brand expert who gave like, so this is the way it should work, right? Or this is the way I think it would have been better if they'd done it this way. Is they should have gotten like a brand expert or brand experts to like design several logos and then put it out to the community to decide, which logo maybe looks better, and then kind of based it off of that. Because many brands, what they do is they do consumer research, and they will literally go out in public with pictures of their logos and ask people, what do you think? Which one kind of, resonates with you more? They would get that research, but it feels like they didn't get that research. They kind of just put out a logo.
They didn't do that.
The
They
story behind it that they thought, would appeal to people.
Yeah. Sleepin says the heart is off center at an angle, and it messed with him.
Yeah, someone else pointed out that okay, so resolution issue on some phones, like you can see that heart as like on the phone, like the corners of it have been cut off a little bit. So on some phones it's like that's something they can fix. So that's not really their fault, or it's like but yeah, I would have personally preferred if they had gone out and put the several logos, and asked the community for a vote and been like, hey, what do you guys think? Because someone else made the point that if you have to explain the logo, like it probably wasn't like a good concept to start with. You have to actually explain to people what it means.
Yeah.
Like Burger King, it's a burger. It makes sense.
And they're the king of the burger.
Exactly. Or like McDonald's, it's the M. Or like Apple, it's literally an apple.
But that's because, but when Apple first dropped, I think it was a stupid name. Like people thought.
Oh, Macintosh.
Yeah, but I remember seeing somewhere that when they first branded it, that it wasn't exactly a hit. I think we're used to it now over, decades.
Mm.
Do you think we'll just get used to this now? Eyes will adjust?
Yeah.
I think we're being too hard.
Apple's old logo is kind of like what VEVE's doing, where, it's the old logo with like several colors across it. And it looks, and nowadays something like that will just look ugly. But if you look on like VEVE's YouTube channel, right, they've got like the heart in like multiple different colors, and it's like you can't really tell what the branding is.
People
Like
said the
blue and
same
white,
thing about
right?
like the
Associated
Meta
with Facebook.
logo.
Yeah. Say that again,
And
Daniel.
like people kind of didn't like the Meta logo when they came out. You know, they rebranded to Meta from Facebook, and now no one really complains about it. You know what I mean? Like, I think it'll be okay, like long term. Like, I think this is just one of those things that the community gets frustrated about. They make jokes, they kind of make memes about it, and then after that, like, I feel like we'll just move on from it naturally.
I love her Sleeping's comments. To be honest, like I personally don't really care about the logo because oh, actually, on that logo point is so my friend who's been a brand designer for like 20 plus years, right? His name's Dan as well, Dan Kern. And on Twitter, he posted a comment saying that he believes the reason they changed their logo is because it could be related to infringement with
Yeah,
Vivo.
Vivo.
And
Yeah.
if you go back on that comment, Ikomi liked that comment. And usually Ikomi likes things to kind of confirm, but without actually specifically saying it due to, you know, maybe legal reasons. So the fact that they went and liked Dan's post about the Vivo and VV thing, that to me implies, and also Alex's post saying we had no choice.
Yeah.
That to me implies that they had some external pressure where they had to change it. They couldn't like, you know, say, oh, maybe leave it. They had to do it. And that only happens when there is, you know, some kind of maybe legal or contractual thing that's pressuring them. So I think that's probably it. They were forced to change it due to you know, maybe Vivo in this case,
Yeah.
because I know Vivi's trying to get into music as well, which is kind of Vivo's thing. So I think it was just way too similar, and they probably were like, you know, you guys need to change your logo, you know, Vivo, and it looks like our logo.
Like, how would they know though? Do you think, you know, because obviously Vivo didn't, you know, like let's just assume it's Vivo. Vivo didn't care in 2021. They didn't really care in 2022. You know, so they mentioned something that about music, and all of a sudden they get upset. Or do you think Vivi kind of tries to get connected with various artists? Vivo hears about it, then pursues legal
Yeah,
action,
because
something like that.
exactly. Yeah, because they've been talking about music verticals. So I imagine they've been having a lot more conversations with music-based IP. And obviously those same IP Vivo would work with, right? And so I think through that, they kind of maybe discovered, hey, there's another company called Vivi, very similar name, similar looking logo, working with the same partners that we're working with. Like they need to
What do you
change the
think
logo.
a music NFT looks like? I was actually looking on OpenSea, and there's a couple like NFTs where like it's you know, it's maybe a picture of like a CD moving, and it plays like like some music, or
Mm.
like, what do you think a music NFT actually looks like? Have you had any concept of what that could be?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of like the concept, isn't it? Is the
You think that's
data
it?
rather than being a image or a 3D file, it's a, you know, it's a music file. Um, and I think something like that could have a lot of potential in the VB-verse. You know, you could have rooms with specific music. I think that would be quite cool. Or you could have, you know, like, I guess we already have kind of NFTs with music, like the band leader Mickey. He
Yeah,
plays
but
what is
the
it?
real
Flight,
music.
yeah. What is it? Is it Flight of the Bumblebees or whatever that song is that he
Yeah,
plays?
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess it would work kind of like that. Like maybe you'd have like something that's reminiscent of, you know, that IP. Let's say hypothetically it's Blackpink, so they drop the Pink Hammer as an NFT, and you click on it, and then it plays, you know, maybe a song, and they could do like a different series of them. That's just, you know, random idea, but you know, they could do it that way, or they could just do, you know, like the kind of generic album cover
Yeah.
with a song in it.
I think
Like kind of
iconic album covers would be kind of dope.
yeah, iconic album
Yeah.
covers with the song would be
Yeah,
cool. And if they have like unreleased tracks or like, you
yeah.
know, super limited edition ones that only some people have, and they release it in NFT format, that would be really cool.
You know, this goes hand in hand with promotion too, just like how they made the movie NFTs, right? You know, you watch the movie, you get a free NFT. They could do
Mhm.
something with like concerts as well, and that could be the first wave of mass marketing. You know, what other way to mass market than movies and concerts? I mean, I
Mm,
think that goes hand in hand together.
And that's kind of like what, those social tokens do, like Rally, where they give like artists their own tokens, and then that they have utility, right? So I know Portugal the Man, the rock group had it, where if you own a certain NFT of a certain musician, you can get like a lot, you can get entrance into a live concert, online. There's so many different ways to leverage, right? The
Yeah.
technology.
How? Okay, so I really wish they had. Okay, so we have blockchain data, so it's okay. We don't need to ask them. But they've already done like this kind of NFT promotional stuff with films, with like their Comic Cons, like these events that you're not going to find very many places with as many people who this stuff could potentially appeal to, right? Like there aren't many places. So if they do it with concerts as well, same concept as like films, etc. Now the blockchain data showed, for example, the Black Panther posters, the Comic Con Spider-Man comic that they did. Not many of them got minted at all, and I guarantee you, actually, I know for a fact that the majority of the ones that got minted were by VEVE people just buying them off of like the random people who had no idea what it was, right? So this kind of stuff that is meant to be, I guess, helping mainstream adoption in terms of the actual effect relative to the other types of marketing that they've done, right? I feel like hasn't been very significant at all. That's just what the blockchain data showed me so far. What do you guys think? Like, do you think it's going to be that this kind of trend will continue for the next couple of years, or maybe in 5 years, all of a sudden they get a huge influx of people because of this kind of marketing? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't think there'll be like a defining moment. I think it will slowly enter into our general social consciousness that, hey, there's this thing out there, and slowly it'll become just part of our daily life, like NFTs and things like that. I don't think it'll be like, oh, this is an amazing product, it's an NFT, everyone's going to go buy it. I think it'll just be slow and steady, kind of like how the internet was. I mean, I just in hindsight, when you look back, you're like, yeah, the internet was a huge phenomenon, but it wasn't like a definitive moment. It was just, people would just figure out how to use the internet, and then eventually there was Facebook, and people started getting on it, and then that became a marketplace. There's just a natural evolution of slow features that until it's just part of our daily life. That's what I think.
Yeah, I wonder if there'll be some sort of tipping point that tips people over and moves the industry forward into mainstream adoption. I want to shift to OMI a little bit and talk about exchanges. I know, Kay, you and I discussed this last time. Daniel, so they said over a year ago we'd get multiple exchanges within a few months. Then the bear market happened, and they said, we're going to wait for the bear market to end. And then recently Reese said, well, we're going to wait until utility comes before we get exchanges. Do you think they're moving the goalposts a bit? I'll let Daniel answer first.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think they are. And to figure out why, I mean, that's a little bit iffy. But the common things that the community and the team have said is, the first one was basically, we're in a bear market, so let's not do that because it's not gonna pump the token. That's one excuse. The other was maybe there's some lawsuits, right? And I don't want to get into too much detail with that, but there are lawsuits out there, so that could potentially be one reason. And now the argument is, well, there's no utility for the token, therefore no reason to buy. I guess we just need to figure out, what would be the core motivation to not releasing the token now? Are they looking in terms of the interests of, do they want to pump our bags? Is that the motivation? Probably not. They're probably not interested in pumping individuals' bags, our bags, so to speak. So I don't know. It's really hard to say. I don't really have a good answer for that. But I think by looking at what they say and trying to dissect that a little bit more, we might be able to come to a conclusion. But I don't really believe it's the reasons that they tell us. I think those are just reasons that sound good, and there might be some thinking, about that. And I will say that if they release like last year, or even maybe now, if they maybe not now, but if they put out Binance last year, do you think that would have pumped the token? It would have pumped it a little bit, but like Illuvium, for example, was on Coinbase, and that didn't pump at all. Like it was still around 50, 55. It eventually went to 35. There was no pump as a result of Coinbase when that was released. But on the flip side, when it is ready to pump, there's a lot more support for that, because now, Illuvium was at like $38 and now it's like 85, maybe going into 90. So kind of a 3x in a short period of time. So we do need exchanges. I just don't know why they haven't done it beyond what they've kind of stated for us. But I would love to hear what you guys have to say about that.
Okay, what do you think?
Yeah, so I mean, they have definitely, it looks like they've been constantly moving the goalposts, right? Because if we go back, so the fact is they sold this token 5 years ago. That's half a decade. Like, if you tell anyone that, they'd be like, what's going on? Like,
Yeah.
Like they would think you're like they've been asleep or something. Like they've just ignored it. Yeah, I can't think of very many tokens that after half a decade of selling it, they still haven't done anything with it. Like, that's just remarkable. And the fact that it's a token tied to an app that grosses a stupid amount of money, like, you've got no excuse really. So, if we go back like 2021, they were saying, we're going to have, 4 to 5 exchanges lined up, some of them are premium ones, etc., etc. And then they backtracked on that. And then they said, oh, we can't do it because the token is on GoChain and not all the exchanges support GoChain. So we can't do it because we were given some bad information. We thought they could support GoChain, blah, blah, blah. And so they were like, okay, 2022, OMI is going to be on ERC20. So all those exchanges, like, it's all good to go. And then, the token pumped because, they did the migration, etc., etc. And then they were like, okay, we're not going to list the token for whatever reason now. And then I was like, okay, well, and then it just continued from that. And then now it's like these like really like random reasons, like, oh, the token doesn't have utility, so we can't list it, or oh, yeah, like we don't want the token to pump and dump, etc., etc. Now, there's a problem with that reasoning, right? And I'll give you the perfect example. So the token obviously doesn't have the right infrastructure to maintain that, I guess, demand for it and the price, etc., right? Now, we could apply that same logic to when they released, Marvel and Disney on the VEVE app, because the app was clearly not ready for as many users as they were getting at the time. And even right now, like, the app would just not be very suitable for a large audience because of all the issues around it. And then there was also like, the mass botting and all of that stuff, right? And then, the lack of consideration with money laundering and fraud, etc. So the app itself was nowhere near ready to support large IP, and they did it anyway. And the result of that now you can see is similar to what they're afraid of is going to happen to the token, right? It'll be a pump and dump. A lot of the collectibles that people bought into did the same thing, like they pumped and dumped. And that's because, they were selling in a ecosystem that they created, which was being artificially inflated and hyped up because of their lack of consideration of all of these things. So, like, they're applying that logic to the OMI token, but they didn't apply it to the VEVE app, which
and should it apply to the OMI token? Like, is it a viable even? Is it logic?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I personally don't think, not listing it on an exchange because, it's just going to pump and dump. I don't think that's a very good reason, because other tokens, they list on the exchange. And yeah, sure, there's going to be a pump and then, sell off after that. But now you've at least created the liquidity for people who have the token, who want to, buy and sell it. And they can do that freely without pumping the price like, like, for example, I bought $400 of OMI the other day. The price pumped like 2%. That was stupid. It shouldn't do that. And that kind of puts people off of buying the token because of, how illiquid it is right now.
Mhm.
And I guarantee you, right, like just by having the token on Binance or a big exchange, people will discover VeVe through that way. I discovered VeVe through the token, and I bet you more people are going to come to VeVe through that token being on a good exchange than they're probably ever going to get trying to do the like physical events where they give out these codes and then people are like, what the hell is this? Oh, someone from the existing VeVe community wants to buy it off me for $20. I'll just sell it to them. Like that's what the blockchain data shows. They didn't have as much success as we would have liked to believe doing it, that kind of marketing. But I bet you, just with the mass amount of people who are searching for something like VeVe and the potential of the token and what kind of ecosystem it's tied to, those people will come to VeVe, and I guarantee you a good chunk of them will become collectors. And I can say that confidently because so many collectors in VeVe I know, I spoke to, they said they never used to be collectors, and then they came to VeVe because they liked the OMI token and they became collectors through that way. And I think if they continue to market on that side as well and heavily focus on that, they will have a lot more people, coming on board to VeVe as opposed to just trying to convince people who aren't really into NFTs and crypto to, hey, come collect digitally, because there isn't really like that demand.
Do you think that means that, if what you said is true, do you think that kind of in our big mass marketing push that the OMI token being on a couple of different exchanges, that could be it? If what you said is true, that's a big way how VeVe gets users is through crypto. That would make some sense then. Huh?
I'll give you another really good case study because I posted about this recently. So Yuga Labs, right? Mm-hmm. Nowhere have they gone about saying we're gonna bring in the mainstream gaming audience, blah blah blah.
Yuga Labs, to clarify, is the team behind Bored Ape.
Yes, yeah. They've pronounced that they are, a cutting edge Web3 based company. They've done all of the Web3 based stuff, interoperability. They've done, staking. They're doing the land with the other side. Very, very like they are like the embodiment of literally the absolute pinnacle of degen Web3 culture, right? And if you look at other Web3 based platforms that are trying to convince mainstream gamers to come to their Web3 based platforms, so like Illuvium, Axie Infinity, they were doing that. They had a bit of success. What is it like? Guild of Guardians, Big Time, all of these ones, right? Like within the span of like a couple of months, like Yuga Labs has brought on more mainstream gamers into a game based around going up a monkey's butthole with something called a sewer pass. You think you're trolling, and they've brought in more mainstream gamers and turned over more revenue than any of the other platforms trying to convince gamers to come on. And how did they do that? They stuck to their strengths. They're like, they marketed towards the existing Web3 demographic. And what happened when they did that? A lot of the people who are trying to, accumulate points in this game called Dookie Dash, they basically went out and reached out to mainstream gamers, people who own the sewer passes and, the NFTs, and they got mainstream gamers to play on their behalf to try and get points faster. And then a lot of these, whales, they reached out to like the top gamers. Like one of the guys is like a champion in Fortnite, and he has 2 million followers on Twitter. Right after he scored the #1 score on Dookie Dash, he went and started talking about it, and he was streaming it to 2 million plus people who follow him because of Fortnite. And Fortnite is a huge game. And all of a sudden, all of these gamers that play Fortnite, they started learning about, Yuga Labs and, all the stuff they're doing. And they started coming on board. And that game grossed like, I think it was like over $35 million.
When did this happen? I didn't hear. I haven't heard anything about Dookie Dash.
Yeah, this is happening like the past month. It's literally a game about going up a monkey's butthole and like navigating it. And the #1 player in Fortnite, he won the first place, and I think he got a pretty big cash prize as well. But there are more top tier players, like top tier mainstream gamers, playing that and streaming it to their audience than any other like Web3 based game. And that was all because of like a little bit of clever marketing that they did. But they kind of focused on the NFT and crypto side, and as a result, a lot of these crypto users kind of, who maybe aren't traditionally gamers, they kind of brought more gamers onto the platform and had them introduced to their ecosystem. And I think that was a very clever thing. And it just goes to show that, like a lot of their stuff that they put out is like kind of, at face value, it looks, silly, like monkeys or I guess apes. Apes aren't really monkeys, but like apes and this like weird looking land and these little creatures. But yeah, they are very good at how they market their content and what they do. Some of the stuff has been hit and miss, like the Snoop Dogg metaverse thing. Like I thought that was a bit cheesy, but yeah, for a game that wasn't even meant to be marketed towards mainstream gamers, like they've gone and like smashed all of their competition and like it's some random monkey game.
And that leads me to like another thought. I've been thinking that a lot of us are here because of the IP, right? That's like one of the attractions of VEVE. And then I think about like, the gaming sector in the gaming industry, and the biggest games aren't, it's not like Batman, it's not like Spider-Man games. It's like Call of Duty, it's GTA, Minecraft. These had no IP, they became IP.
Mm.
Do you think that VEVE is almost disadvantaged with the IP in a sense because it's not novel? There's no novelty there. It's just like, characters that there's nothing new or cutting edge about it.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be very, very interesting to see if VEVE starts licensing Web3 based IP. Imagine if VEVE got a license from Yuga Labs to do Bored Ape stuff. I think that would be very, very interesting, and I would be curious to see what the effect of that is. Because yeah, a lot of their IP is very, very good. Like, no one's gonna laugh at you if you say you managed to acquire Disney or Marvel, or DC. Like that's very, very good IP. But the audience that exists within these IPs, like the fans, many of them, they're not like crypto people or Web3 people. Yeah, as Web3 adoption increases, it would make sense to them. Like, hey, like this makes sense. It's something that I grew up with. So for the nostalgia factor, as well as like, I guess being involved in like this new technological adoption, yeah, it's going to appeal to a lot of people still. But I make this point again because I did it on your stream before, Danny, is if Amazon has been struggling to bring in mainstream adopters, if all these other like large companies have been struggling, and I don't see them being successful anytime soon. By anytime soon, I mean within the next 3 years. Then VEVE is going to really struggle as well, and we don't even know if it's guaranteed or not. And one of the main things that causes startup companies to fail, and I've seen it time and time again, is when they are obsessed with targeting a demographic that doesn't exist, and they keep trying to target that demographic. And in the end, what they end up doing is they end up pushing away the audience that does currently exist, that is interested, which in this case would be the crypto and NFT kind of people who came in through that way, as opposed to, the people who came in as like traditional collectors. That's where companies start to fall off, and that's where competition starts to overtake them, because competition will see that gap there. Because a lot of VEVE's competitors, they have been smart enough to realize, the people that buy this stuff, what is it that they want? They want Web3 ideologies to be respected. People want interoperability. They want to own their assets, not your NFTs, not your, not your keys, not your NFTs, right? They want to own this stuff. They want to be able to like freely use their collectibles in like various different metaverses and environments. That's a core part of it. They want to be able to, use, if the NFT allows it, some form of commercial rights. Okay, I know with VEVE, the license stuff is more complicated. So, that's fine. They get a pass on that or whatever. But they also want to, be able to freely sell these assets on various different marketplaces, right? They don't want it to be locked up inside this one platform. So a lot of these concepts, these competitors, they see that and they're coming out with that stuff like right out the gate. Like, Hero, you can buy your stuff, sell on OpenSea if you want. McFarlane, they went interoperable from day one. Quid came in after VV to the NFT game. They were late to the bus, but they recently, allowed you to mint your collectibles, some of them on Ethereum, again, based around, licensors and, what they allow. But you can have them on Ethereum and move them to your own wallet and sell them on OpenSea, whatever you want, move them into, different metaverses. So all of this stuff, this is like stuff that people currently are on VV, they want. And if someone is on VV and says they don't care about interoperability, I guarantee you they're probably in the minority. Like, I don't even hold that much VV stuff anymore, but I'm still out there being a strong advocate for interoperability because, that's a core fundamental part of, what an NFT should be, right? I know from a technological perspective, yeah, VV meets a requirement of NFT, but it's not being used as like how an NFT should be used, right? And I think they really need to make sure that they kind of don't backtrack too much on, respecting what Web3 should be. I know people call them like the Web 2.5 company.
Yeah.
Like, that's fine. Like, you need to be a bit of a hybrid. You don't want to go like too heavy into, letting people have full control of everything. Otherwise, some people they will have some issues. And it's fine. Like, you can like bridge people into Web 2.5 to Web 3 over time. But you also got to be aware that if you kind of force your existing audience away, there are competitors out there that are kind of,
Waiting.
doing what people want. So yeah, it's a tricky one, but I think
Daniel, what do you think about that? The whole interoperability narrative.
Yeah, when I first got into this, I really believe that most people want interoperability, and this is 2021 timeframe. Most people wanted that because they wanted to flip it on OpenSea, and if certain NFTs were going for a couple ETH, they can take it and sell it over there. So I really did believe that a lot of it was based off of greed. But, since then, the Web3 space has kind of evolved. It's the rules are more clear. And I definitely agree with what Kay is saying. And we've seen kind of evidence where people get locked out of their NFTs. What happens to those collectibles? Do they go into a pool that, or eventually it's like resold? These are all these little things that, you could be protected from if you actually had it in your own wallet. So I believe from a purely security standpoint, not even using it in other metaverses, we need to kind of have interoperability just for our own protection, because we've seen that the VV security system can be very finicky. And, I wouldn't want to be someone who, has a big collection, 6-figure collection, and all of a sudden I do something, and then the VV algorithm doesn't like that, and I'm locked out for 9 months. That's a lot of money that people have put in, that have been in these spots. So, and I really feel for them. So for that reason alone, we need interoperability just for our own personal security of our own assets. Otherwise, that's partly why I put all my money into crypto. I really feel more comfortable with OMI because I have that security. My tokens are in a cold storage wallet. That's a big reason for it. I understand it. I feel safe with it. I wouldn't put any significant money.
I guarantee you, the moment they go interoperable, just that alone will be the best marketing they'll ever get. Because the moment that these assets no longer can only be found on this app, the moment you come across a Batman on OpenSea, because I've spoken to people who don't know anything about NFTs, right? And you know what they always say when I ask them about NFTs, like, do you know anything about it? Like, most of the time, they'll either say, oh, it's that monkey thing, or they will say they've heard of OpenSea, because that's the one that everyone OpenSea is like the Coinbase of NFTs right now. It's like, talk about NFTs, people are like, oh, there's that OpenSea place you can buy them on. So most likely people are going to, if they want to do any kind of NFT exploration for the first time, they're going to log on to OpenSea, because that's what I did, right? That's what a lot of people have asked they do. They go on OpenSea and they kind of look at some of the stuff there. I guarantee you, if they logged on OpenSea and they see, I don't know, like a Superman on the front page, that's one of the first things they're going to click, because everything else you've never ever seen before. It's like, made up IP, or like, not mainstream IP. Usually, you will find some licensed stuff. But if you see like a Superman, if it was me, I would click on that first and be like, oh, I didn't know DC was involved in this space. And then I would, through that, learn what VeVe is. And it's kind of the same effect that the OMI token had, because we found the OMI token, through some other means. Then we discovered VeVe. If they put out the collectibles, allow them to be interoperable, people stick them on random marketplaces all across the internet. Some people on those marketplaces browsing will come across it, and then they'll discover VeVe. And that is that I think is going to have a very, very powerful effect on their user base growth and marketing. I think that would bring in way more people than trying to go out to physical events and, try and, convince these people to join VeVe who maybe haven't heard of it before.
Would you be okay with this definition of interoperability? Because I feel like it's a more realistic one. But what if interoperability was just you could take your NFTs to IMX, you can keep it in an IMX wallet, you can take it into approved metaverses like the VeVeverse and maybe partner projects like Epico Regal. Would you consider that interoperable? I mean, it's not in the sense that we think about, right? Like, but
I would say that's, I mean, if it's on IMX, it's on layer 2 ETH. And if it's on layer 2 ETH, similar to Hero, you should be able to then potentially bridge it to L1 because it's on L2. There's a fee involved, but I wouldn't see any reason why not. But if they then start limiting it to certain marketplaces, I mean, it's better than what they have right now. But again, like a lot of people out there, if you're only allowing on IMX, then it depends on IMX's success as well. Which, to be fair, like IMX, the team behind it are fantastic. I think they are going to do very, very well. But I think true interoperability, like, if it's on Ethereum, anything that's Ethereum based, you should be able to kind of freely move it there if it's a marketplace that supports Ethereum. Like, imagine if you had, let's say you have Bitcoin, right? And imagine if your Bitcoin, you could only sell it from your wallet to Coinbase. You're not allowed to send it to Binance, to, Sendex, Bitforex, whatever. Like, you can only send it to Coinbase with their crappy extortionate fees.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how annoying would that be? And compare that to Ethereum. Let's say Ethereum, you could send anywhere. You could have it in your wallet, you could send it to any exchange. I bet you more people would start to adopt Ethereum because of that reason. And so their competitors, they're not going to, limit it to just one marketplace. They're going to have it fully open.
Part of it is that Disney wants to make sure that they get their cut and they have some sort of control, right? You can't like modify it or whatever. But so that would be the thinking is, I mean, once it's on layer 1, can you build a smart contract where you still collect that fee no matter, like, even if you like try to game it, like, I'm going to give it to Danny here as a gift, it's going to be worth $0. And then we do this side transaction later where he just Venmos me money.
If it's like a gift where you're sending it around, then
because
no,
that's what people did with VeVe.
You have to claim the royalty of that. I don't think no, because otherwise it becomes really kind of annoying. Like, imagine if you have it in your wallet and you want to send it to your long-term storage wallet, you would have to then pay a fee to transfer it there. Like, people wouldn't be happy with that. It would have to be through an actual sale of a platform. I mean,
do you think that's the reason why we'll never get it? Because then I could just, I could just send you my VeVe collectible and you can send me money under the table, avoid it being registered on the site, avoid taxes, cut out some fees.
I mean, that's what was happening the whole time on VeVe for like the longest amount of time. People were just sending it to other people and taking, USDT payments or ETH payments. And even to this day, that still kind of happens, right? Obviously, it's harder to send collectibles now, like, but yeah, like, I don't think that would be like the main reason. And I don't think, that should be the reason to discourage them from allowing interoperability, because, physical collectibles is the same thing. Like if I wanted to, rather than going through eBay, I could find someone elsewhere and be like, "Do you want to buy this off me?" And eBay doesn't get a cut, or whoever else doesn't get a cut.
But I think the difference is that the power of NFTs is that you get that cut on every sale, right? So you're circumventing.
Yeah, but I don't think. I mean, VEVE was a very good case study, right? The majority, even though a lot of people were doing off-app transactions, the large majority of people were not doing it. They were just selling it the normal way. And the main reason for that was, one, it's trustless. You don't have to trust someone to send you money, which a lot of people do get scammed by. And two, it's convenient. I don't need to go out and talk to people and find out who's trustworthy, find an escrow and probably pay them. I'd end up losing more money. It's just easier to list it on the market, get my money. I know it's guaranteed. So in a way, I'm paying for that security and convenience. And for that reason, I think people will continue to list stuff on markets because they're paying for security and convenience. So I don't think
they're high value, like that's kind of where the biggest market was, high value wallets and other collectibles. Because then it becomes very advantageous to use a black market to, if you're talking about a $20 Kripken, like you're right, no one cares.
Yeah.
But high value items, it's that's what it was being used for, right?
Yeah. I mean, I believe that most of VEVE's volume is going to come from low priced items anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
If we look at the comic volume, right? Most of the volume for comics come from the commons. They don't actually come from the secret rares, because the secret rares don't actually sell very often. They'll sit there in a store for a long time, whereas the commons, they'll just be constantly, like, if you look at them, they're just constantly selling all day, buying and selling. If I use Marvel Comics 1 as an example, most of that volume came from the commons, because people are just buying and selling those all day because there's liquidity for those. Whereas if you look on the secret rare, you might get like one sale like every couple of days at most. And I think that's what VEVE is trying to do. They're not trying to become like one of those generative PFP projects that only have like 100 editions that, people manipulate the floors and you get like one sale a week or whatever. They're trying to do high volume, relatively cheap stuff. And that's what the mass market wants. They don't want to go out and buy, $10,000 NFTs. Maybe some of them do, but that's not mass market people. That's like specifically hardcore collectors. But normal people who are just kind of doing NFTs for fun, and there's some stuff that maybe they like, they'll probably spend $20-$30 on stuff, and that's where the liquidity is. And I can confirm that because as many people know, I sold a lot of my VEVE stuff, right? And when I was selling a lot of my stuff, the higher priced items were so hard to sell. Like I would sell it and like 10 people would undercut me, and all of a sudden the item I was selling for like 10,000 gems, now the floor is 5,000 gems because of all the undercutting. Whereas the comics, right, like the common Marvel comic, the common Fantastic Four comics, I could list that at the time for like 100 gems, right? And within 5 minutes it sold. Like no undercutting, easy. There's a lot of liquidity there. So for the cheaper items that are popular, there is a lot of liquidity. And so like I think with what they're trying to do, having open markets, I don't think it's going to be disincentivizing them to get involved in that.
Dan, you gotta go. You gotta cut out to pick up your.
I'm probably need to head out just in a few minutes here, but
before you go, Dan, I wanted to ask you what your with all the sentiment, has your perception or your game plan changed in terms of OMI?
I think the last time I was on like Ecomiverse kind of round table, I kind of made a comment that I was thinking about getting 50 million OMI. But when I made that comment, I thought about it, and it would be possible for me to do that, within the next 6 months or so, to have 50 million OMI. But I think the best solution for me is I already have quite a bit. I put a lot of money, a lot of my investment capital into the OMI token. I'm at 20 million and some change. I think I'm just going to sit on that. I think that's enough risk for me. Any more and my stomach kind of churns a little bit, get a little anxious about it. So I think what I'm going to do is just hold on to what I have. And if what we've talked about in terms of price appreciation happens, that's really quite a bit for me. I think any more, I mean, what would be nice, of course, but I don't think it's worth the risk. I think I'm at a point where my risk tolerance has been met in terms of how much I put in. Because this is not the only project I put money in. I put a decent amount into Illuvium and some other smaller side projects that also aren't doing very well. So
What was your
I think I'll just hold for now.
What's your average token price on Illuvium?
The bulk of my tokens, I haven't done a formal analysis, but the bulk of my tokens were around the $400 price point. I got in.
Oh, that's not terrible.
Yeah. I put in a lot around that point. So I'm only down. I was telling someone, I forgot what it is. I think I'm only down about 25%.
That's not bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Because I put in a big chunk and I just sat on it and I never sold because I staked it all. I couldn't pull it out. So I never bought any tokens beyond that price. So I feel pretty good about it. The losses could have been a lot worse, but
25% down isn't bad at all. That's all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dan, did you want to cut out now or?
Yeah, I have to go. I have to pick up my daughter, but I appreciate you for having me on, Kay. It's always good to talk to you. I appreciate your audience for bearing with me, but I have to go.
Thanks, brother.
Yeah, take care.
Yeah, I want to thank SoCal Omi Homie for the super chat. Thanks, Sleeping. Thank you, Sleeping. Thank you, Daniel Lee, for coming through, brother. We'll catch up again soon. Kay, early on in this, I asked Daniel what his perception of the update was, the community update.
Oh yeah.
What's your give it a rating here? What do you think? 1 to 4.
My honest opinion.
Yeah, let's be honest.
1. Wait, one's the lowest, right?
Yeah, 1's the lowest.
Yeah, 1.
Why?
Yeah. Okay, so a couple of reasons, right? So, firstly, after I've watched any kind of AMA, I will ask myself, if I hadn't watched this AMA, would I be at some form of disadvantage or would I be regretting it? And I felt like after having watched that AMA, I hadn't learned anything or felt like I'd gained anything from it really, right? So that's the first thing is I feel like
you got the heart. We got the heart.
I don't care about a heart logo. Yeah, I feel like, so in tech, we do this all the time actually, is at the end of a 2-week sprint, right? We do our review and we talk about certain topics. And it's very, very common, like all tech teams do it. And then we do something called ROTI, which is ROTI, return on time invested, right? Because you're putting time into something. Was that time valuable, right? And if I put, an hour into watching some update, did I feel like I gained something from it? And honestly, this last one, I didn't feel like I really gained anything from it. And then the other thing is, I understand if there isn't anything to talk about because, sometimes that happens, right? Nothing's happened. Markets are silent. But this past month, okay, the last time they did an update was over 6 weeks ago. So in that time, they should have even more stuff to talk about than usual. Mm-hmm. But this past month, there's been so many things that the people in the community have been asking about that they could have addressed, but they chose not to say anything. And so that to me is you did have stuff that you could have spoken about,
So if it was you, let's say you're part of the team, you have a seat at the table, and you're helping them, come up with this community update. How would you have planned it?
Okay, so firstly, right? Okay, so you want to go for the rebranding, etc., etc. That's fine. You want to explain why you've done the rebranding. That's fine as well. Now, things that people have been talking about, right? Like the dodgy Spider-Man wallets. So I would have gone into, if it was me, I normally like getting the difficult stuff out of the way first, right? Then you can just focus on the stuff that you want to talk about.
And then you also leave on a more positive sentiment.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's just common, form of a conversational, etiquette or, tactfulness. So I would have spoken about the dodgy Spider-Man wallets. I would have been like super honest, right? Like, you know, if those wallets are custodial on behalf of Marvel or whatever, I would have been like, you know, okay, at the time because we haven't done KYB yet, this is part of the reason why we're doing KYB, is to allow businesses to have custodial wallets with us. And at the time, you know, we weren't very, you know, clear at the time. That was an oversight on our part. This is why these wallets exist with hundreds of Spider-Man in it. And I mean, you want to be honest about that stuff, because it looks, the longer you leave something like that, or the longer you choose to ignore it, people are going to keep forming their own narratives, and it's going to get worse and worse. And the more that people talk about this in the community, the more it's going to be putting people off who are new to the project. Because if I come into a project and I see them talking about, you know, the team buying their own NFTs to make it look like they sold out, I don't even read any further. I'm like, right, next project. Because most prospective people, they're going to be looking through many projects, and they're not going to spend too long on one. But as soon as they see something like that, they're just going to be like, all right, it's not even worth continuing. Like,
Red flag.
Exactly. So they need to realize that this is what a lot of people who are prospective to VVC. And I always like going back to this point of trying to view things in the form of a neutral third party, because you have to, you know, if you're trying to grow the platform, that's the way you need to think. You can't just, you know, think from the perspective of this very niche demographic that you just want to cater to, because that's not going to work out. So yeah, I would have spoken about the difficult stuff first, right? Get that out of the way. And then, you know, the stuff that they did talk about, which were updates that we have been kind of waiting patiently for, I felt like I didn't feel any more confident that those were happening anytime soon. Literally, like, I felt like I didn't really walk away with some kind of you know, optimism in, hey, it's going to happen soon. But then I also felt like I didn't get like a good or any real explanation for why, you know, for example, MCP, which was supposed to be a Christmas present, why it's now February and there's still, it's in the exact same place that you had left off. Now,
and
what I would
also said it would be a matter of weeks and not months, and now here we are.
Yeah, in February, and you know,
into months. Now we're into months.
Yeah, and at the time, I was like thinking, no, it's 100% going to be delayed, because that's just what they do, right? They kind of somehow always end up with delay. Now, what I would have done, right, is I would have been more prepared, and I would have literally, and I know they don't really do this stuff. I've asked them or suggested to them that maybe this is a good idea, but to have like a bit more detail when it comes to the sprint, like end of sprint kind of progress. So every 2 weeks, they wouldn't have done nothing. They will have done stuff, but maybe the stuff they've done hasn't translated to an actual tangible feature that's seen by the customers. They would have done a lot of the, you know, back-end code optimizations, etc., etc. So if they had come with a bit more detail, at least, about why it's now February and nothing's been happened, as opposed to, you know, a very generic answer like testing or technical issues. If they had come with a bit more detail, like,
and,
you know,
like I said that to Dan before, I referenced that Gavin Weeks. Did you see like when Gavin Weeks tweeted about a search bar and the intricacy involved, and how it's not so simple?
That's why I keep saying, like, you know, like Gavin, the guy from Colex, that's why I was so bullish on like the stuff that Colex does, because that's what they do. They're very pragmatic. They appreciate the value of detail. They don't give you like a fluffy, generic, you know, repeated answer. And something like that, it adds so much value. And if they had done that, okay, because I have a tech background, even though I have a tech background, it would have still added some value for me. But the fact that it was a very generic answer, it's like, you know, testing or technical issues that they're working on, like that adds zero value to me. And it's going to add zero value to someone who doesn't have a tech background. But if they gave an answer like what Gavin gave, if you don't have a tech background, at least now you're learning about, you know, the intricacies of how search works, like with indexing and, you know, all of that stuff.
And I'm going to take it a step further. Not only are you gaining zero value, you're losing value.
Yes.
Right.
So yeah, like that's the other thing I would have done is I would have come more prepared with more detail, knowing that hey, we missed the benchmark again. Yeah, so those are the two main things. Is I would have addressed the things that people are talking about that I know need to be addressed, and I would have just tried to be as honest as possible without jeopardizing the licensors. Come more detail with more of a detailed answer to why things have been delayed, and they had Mitch there, and Mitch did give a bit more context. It would have been nice to have that kind of detail that Gavin provided, for example, and he did that on behalf of VV. He doesn't work
Right.
for
Yeah.
VV.
He's not even working there.
And I feel like he's given more value on like the VV related content, like why something takes a long time, than anyone from their team has done up like this year. So yeah, that's something that they can learn from for sure.
Would you have shown like a demonstration of MCP to show people like they did with VVverse? A lot of people were questioning VVverse, right? But when we actually saw it, we know it's real now. We know it's coming. And so, it's coming. We know it. I think the same for Master Collectors program would help.
Yes. So something like that, again, like this is something I think they should do, because Illuvium, one of the things I love about Illuvium, and what's his name? Grant Warwick, like he commented on one of my posts where I, shared one of their posts, is they keep posting devlogs, which is similar to what I think VV should do in terms of like sprint goals and sprint like things they've achieved in their sprints.
Mhm.
So if they had come and just showed like a little demo of like what MCP looks like in their test environment, that to me would have added value, and it would have added value for them, because like I'll be honest now, like after the whole logo thing, I don't trust them when it comes to aesthetics and branding anymore. Like they've lost my trust on that front. The fact that they did this like whole rebranding without community feedback, because now they're getting the feedback after it's been done. If they show us the MCP what it looks like in a test environment, I guarantee you they'll get some really, really good feedback about maybe some aesthetic changes they can make before it goes live, because it will be very like, it's normal to change the look of something when it's before it goes live, because you will
Right.
get feedback, and that is, I guess that's the point of the people who are testing it. But I would say that's probably more so identifying bugs and things early on before it goes to production, not so much the aesthetic side. But there are people who are like professional designers and stuff. They can give very good feedback on very intricate detailing. So yeah, if they just show a demo of it, again, that would add value for people, but add value for them as well. So yeah, that those are like just three things that they could change without much work, because again, we have to also respect the fact that they are busy. A lot of our demands, if they take too much time, it's fine, like they can't do it. But I think getting some details about what you've done in the sprint doesn't take very much time, because you should know that stuff. It should be there. Being honest doesn't take any time. It's just being honest.
Yeah. It's just
And
real, right?
getting some demo stuff. Yeah, you can get someone to screen record, a little clip of something and just show that, get some feedback. I think doing that would really upscale the community AMAs, and it's like they're getting a huge bang for their buck, basically, like a huge return on investment for the small amount of time that they put in.
Right. The
And
investment
people
of
would be
time.
really happy if they did that.
Yeah. Were there any takeaways, any positive takeaways from it?
There was one, actually. There was one. So they gave more context to crypto payout. Now, they gave context with regards to why it's been difficult. But I didn't feel like I walked away feeling confident with where they are in terms of rolling it out. Now, Dan, I believe he did say it's basically ready, but they need to kind of go through, ensuring that it's secure. So saying something generic like that, ensuring it's secure, like that doesn't add value to me. Like, I want to know what you mean by secure. Tell me what that means in terms of things that you have to do. So I have somewhat of an idea, like, where you are.
Yeah.
Like, are you in the process of testing it internally with 100 users? Is that where you're at in terms of making it secure? Are you still waiting for, some kind of regulatory compliance, like, paperwork to get done? Like, what does that
Yeah.
look like? How long does that take? Just saying we need to make it more secure, like that's a very generic thing. And whenever they give generic answers, it doesn't add value for me. And I don't think it adds value for many other people.
I guess it also contributes to mistrust and it's, negative sentiment. Because I think this has been the ongoing theme is poor communication, right,
Yeah.
from the beginning.
Generic answers are okay if you have the credibility for people to trust your generic answers, because then
Right.
a generic answer becomes an excuse. Because if I said, we're in testing right now for a feature, and there are people in the community who are now tweeting saying, hey, they've been invited to test something, and they're talking about it, and then it kind of rolls out in roughly the right time frame that you expect it to roll out in, or even if it's delayed, if the people who are testing, they kind of they're aware of why it's being delayed because they found something whilst testing. If it's something like that, then yeah, that's fine. You can be generic because you still have that credibility. But if you say, it's being worked on, it's in testing, and you keep saying that again and again and again, and that's always followed by a delay, then people are just going to stop trusting you, because
Yeah, they need a Gavin Weeks
there's a limit for everyone.
Yeah. Blockchain Comics here. If they don't deliver in Q1, it's game over for VEVE. Do you think along those lines, or are you willing to give them more leeway?
Yeah, so I stick by my original stance. I said I'm going to give them until May, because that's when Mitch and Nesta properly came on board. They'd been kind of being onboarded throughout kind of last year. But I said, 6 months in, that's when I expect to have seen an improvement. And if it's May of this year and everything is still delayed, I'm going to be like, you know what, like, at that point, then I'd be like, I think they've been given enough benefit of the doubt. At that point, I would have to say, I think maybe I gave them too much credit. I overjudged them. I don't know if they're going to be able to,
Execute.
be the main kind of licensed NFT collectible platform. I think, they're going to get, they might end up being the MySpace of collectibles, where, they had a good head start, good idea, but they just couldn't execute. And someone else came along and executed.
Yeah.
That's hopefully it doesn't go to that. Hopefully they turn it around, they pull off a miracle. But
So you want to see them be able to roll out MCP and it work properly. That would bolster your confidence. Just if that one thing rolled out, let's say, and they didn't roll out VeVeVerse, that would be enough for you to say, you know what, they did something well.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I'm being overly demanding by saying all I want is for them to roll out one thing, just one thing, and do it well. Like that's basically, for me, would be at least enough of a confirmation that they can deliver. I'm not even asking for them to deliver everything that they've promised they deliver, but has been delayed for years. I just want them to deliver one thing. That's it. And if they can do that, I'm like, okay, fine. You get back a bit more of my like trust and faith. Because if it's like May and they still haven't delivered MCP, and all of the stuff they said about, hey, from February onwards, we're going to be releasing a new, we're going to have a new release every 2 weeks, right? And that doesn't have to be a feature. It can be code optimizations and whatnot. But at that point, if MCP still isn't out, then, or just something significant still isn't out, then at that point I'm going to be like, they have actually failed here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to defend that.
And would you sell your OMI, or you just hold on to it and scale into other positions?
Yeah, I would still hold my OMI, because OMI, the benefit of it, OMI at least, is a token that can be freely traded on exchanges. It can just pump off of just the general market movement. Like nothing has happened for OMI,
Right.
this
Literally.
past couple of months, and it's still kind of gone up, like 30% from the lows, and that's
Right.
just following the market. Like, it was in the 0.0007s. Now it's nearly 001 again, actually, and that's just purely off of the market. So even if the market moves, the market goes 3x, I'd expect OMI to go back to 003 at least, and they don't need to technically deliver MCP or anything for them to at least go on a decent exchange. Like, yes, I know they don't want to pump and dump, but at that point, just list it on a decent exchange, so at least we can buy some without pumping the price like 5% every time. And also, they have said that OMI technically can, it's a token that's not designed to be exclusive for VeVe. So I guess in that sense, they can continue to use the token elsewhere. But again, VeVe would be like the main thing I believe it would be used on. They could always, turn it around and end up going down the Web3 gaming vertical, because I do like the idea that they're creating a package to use OMI token. So a tokenomics engine where games can plug in the OMI tokenomics model as a package, like a software package, and integrate the OMI token in their game. And that's a very, very good idea. And I think they are onto something there, because the benefit of doing that, let's say you're a game designer and you've got a great idea for a game, but you haven't got much of a marketing budget, and you want to do a Web3 game, but you don't want to go out and create your own token. If you just integrate the OMI token, what that's going to do is the Ecomi community is huge.
Right.
Just by doing that, you've already now adopted an existing community. They're going to come to your game just because they have the token, and it's a game that you can use the token in and potentially earn the token as well. So all of a sudden, I guarantee you, loads of like these indie game studios, they're going to see that happening, and they're going to be like, I want to use this OMI token in my game because there's a huge community out there that's going to, be introduced to my game. I don't need to market it because, they're marketing it for me essentially. So by doing that, that is actually very, very powerful. And if they do that and roll it out in a scalable way where any game can very easily implement OMI token, then that in itself could potentially even end up being more powerful than the value that the token gets from VeVe, because there are some very, very good games that
Is OMI designed differently from other tokens in that way, in terms of being able to be packaged into?
No, it's ERC20. Any ERC token is there are they exist on Ethereum. It's not any different to if you were using ETH. They're both ERC20 tokens. Just all you have to change is the contract. That's it.
Thanks, Zach. Another super chat. Appreciate you. Said K and Dan DC inspired my first OMI purchase about 2 years ago at this point.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That was near. Oh no, that was near the all-time highs. Yeah, I bought my first OMI at 0.005, I think, and then it went to 0.007, and then 1 cent. I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Yeah, one day dinner is on him.
Woohoo.
Reese talked about the web wallet, and he kind of downplayed exchanges, saying that people will be able to access it on the web wallet. Do you agree with that? Do you think the web wallet will be that impactful?
It's only going to be as impactful as the demand for the token, and the demand for the token is going to come with the utility outside of just a web wallet, right? Because a web wallet is going to have no real use case if you can't really still do anything with your token, right? So that's fine, implement the web wallet, that's cool. But there needs to be a use for the token for people to go out and buy it in the app. Otherwise, if the only use of it is still, buying and trading it, then it's never going to be better than the exchanges, because the exchanges is where the liquidity is at, is where the crypto, people are looking for tokens to trade. And just by being on a new exchange, like people will have scanning tools and things for like new token listings, and they will, you know, discover tokens that way. And that in itself is like free exposure for you, basically, just being on that exchange. If your only way to purchase OMI or significant way is within the app, that's only going to appeal to people who already exist on VEVE.
Right.
And they're not going to want to buy the OMI token if you can't actually use it on VEVE. Like, what's the point? Whereas people on exchanges, they will happily buy the token, even if there's no utility, just based off of the fact that maybe it looks like an attractive token to trade. You know, maybe the fund, like the technicals are lining up and you feel like the token's going to pump. Like,
right.
Just off of that factor, people will buy the token. So that's only going to be applicable on exchanges. That's not really going to be something on the web app. There has to be the use for it. So yeah, the web app, I don't think is going to be a replacement for exchanges until there is very, very significant utility in the platform, and they really need to focus on that.
Yeah. Blockchain says OMI was created as a shitcoin to pump the token to create value for the seed investors. Agree or disagree, Kay?
So let's lay down the facts, right? Like, what has happened to date? They created the token. They heavily marketed the token as being, you know, like something you can use to purchase collectibles with, something you can, like, you know, I can't remember what you could do, like all of the stuff they came up with. And they used that token as like leverage to penetrate the crypto community. And pretty much every single person, every single OG on VEVE came from that space, because there was no VEVE app at the time.
Right.
You had to be someone who was in crypto to have known about VEVE, because that's the only way they were marketing, was through the OMI token. So let's say you bought in, and you know, back then, okay, yeah, you made some huge gains even till now, right? But up until now, it's been 5 years since they did that token sale. You can't really use the token for anything. So if you take out the fact of, you know, like the team behind it, etc., etc., if I saw a token that was marketed to crypto people to raise funds to then buy, you know, stuff that I need to build my product, I believe they used the initial OMI liquidity to buy licenses, like license acquisition. I believe that's what the funds were for. So, you know, if they went and did that to build their product, and after finally building the product, they haven't actually done the stuff they said they were going to do with the token, you know, and it's been 5 years since they sold the token, then yeah, I'd agree. I'd be like, at face value, this literally looks like it was a cash grab. That's what it looks like. You know, you said you're going to do these things, you got the money off the token, and you abandoned the token. That's what it looks like. Now, it appears like they are focusing on the token now, but from my point of view, I'm not going to be someone who speculates on things that they might do or are going to do. I'm only going to have an opinion once they have shown they have done something. And that's why I have, you know, like very, like, I guess, bearish views on, you know, like a lot of the stuff that they're working on right now, because I haven't seen any tangible evidence that, you know, they have progressed in X, Y, or Z. Like, you know,
you want action over words.
Exactly. At least something visual that would help, you know, at least a little video of something that, you know, shows, for example, MCP is pretty much done, or, you know, some progress on OUP, you know, just a demo of the web wallet, like, because that's one of the things that does actually have a bit of the progress bar, so progress circle complete. So at least what they've done so far on that, if they did that, then that would inspire so much more confidence. Like, I think if they just spent the time to just record a little video, the amount of time they would save arguing with people on Twitter, trying to explain to them what's going on, people wouldn't even ask a lot of this, you know, when questions anymore, because they've at least seen something tangible. Right. Like, I don't understand why they don't do that. Like, it would be beneficial for them if they did it like that. But, you know, like, it's their decision. It's not mine.
Yeah. So I remember talking to you a few months back, and we're going to wrap up soon, It's getting a little late, but I remember talking to you after the OUP article came out, and you've turned super bullish, man. You were talking Cavell prices, man. You were going, you were talking about, you could see it going 50 cents, whatever, even going to Cavell prices one day. Were you lost in the sauce? And has that changed for you? Like, do you not have those views anymore? Or do you think it's still possible if they execute?
Yeah, so if they execute on the stuff that's outlined, then yes, like that token is going to be like one of the greatest, like I believe one of the greatest, tokens in terms of performance that they can have out there. But looking at their progression right now to date, with just how long they've taken to, I mean, they haven't released MCP yet, so how long they've been delaying MCP. Just looking at that and looking at some of the decisions they've made, some of the very questionable decisions, I would say I am struggling to have confidence in them executing. Now, if they can, and this is what I'm saying, if they can kind of re-inspire that confidence in myself and other people, that they can actually execute, that they have turned a new leaf, that the soon days are over, that now they're going to be delivering. And to quote Mitch, his aim is to deliver on the stuff that they promised they would have with, and deliver that with quality. If that is true, and if they do what they're saying now, and I know they said they would do X, Y, and Z multiple times and didn't do it. So if this time is different, then yes, like, the OMI token will have huge, huge value, but it's contingent on them at this point now kind of regaining that trust, regaining that confidence, and showing that they're doing stuff. And I will say that one thing that I think might resonate with a lot of people is, one thing that I guess a lot of people don't like is with the VEVE team, they've been talking about doing things, right? And that's what they do. They talk about doing things. But a lot of their competitors, they don't talk about doing things. They just do it. And then it's there. Like, they barely spoke about the burning and crafting in Hero, but they just released it and it worked, and it worked well. And it brought a lot of hype and attention back to Hero. And people are having fun doing that. It's like, it is exciting to get involved in that kind of mechanic. And they barely spoke about it. Whereas, how long have they been talking about Master Collector Program? It's been like years, and we're still waiting for it. And that should be like an integral part of collecting, to have a collecting program. So that's that. I think the moment they start doing rather than talking about doing, that's when I'll be more bullish, and I think that's when more other people will be more bullish, and that's when I'll have more trust that they can deliver all the OMI utility as well.
Yeah, Death Bunny's a passionate VV collector, and he's pushing back here. He says, let's disregard the fact that VV has to deal with things that were not on the original roadmap. Things like MTL, KYC, IMX, massive bots. He says, conveniently, you're leaving those things out and ignoring them. What do you think about that? Is he correct in that the unexpected, road bumps got in the way of things?
Okay, so there are other platforms that have had to deal with the same thing, right? And I made that point last stream where I said, there are things that are outside of control because the environment has changed. So, like, I made that point very clear. Now, even when you consider uncertainty, right? Like, it's part of the development process to factor in uncertainty into your estimates. So, if they're putting out estimates without factoring in uncertainty, and it's consistent, then that you can't continue to blame factors outside of your control, because a lot of these factors you have introduced yourself due to lack of due diligence. And many of those examples, for example, the Apple issue, MTL, all of that stuff, that arise because of your lack of foresight of understanding how alternative currencies work in the App Store. Like, yes, it is somewhat vague, but other apps that are similar, they kind of planned around this a bit better, right? Yes, with IMX, they had to go on GoChain first. That's fine. But after having done the IMX migration, like, you're still kind of struggling with just doing the stuff that he said was going to come as a result of now being on L2. Whereas you have competitors that have done the same thing and they're now surpassing you. I'll use another example, right? Quid was later than VeVe to NFTs. They had to migrate their whole infrastructure to support NFTs. And they've delivered more features in the past 12 months, like tangible features, than I feel like VeVe has done. Now, I'm not going to argue about, yes, but you can make more money on VeVe and VeVe has more IP. That's like stuff that they are good at. Revenue generation and IP. Like no one's
nailed it. Yeah, they've knocked it out.
Yeah, but delivery of features, if you say they've been very good with the amount of features that they've been delivering, then I don't think that's a valid point. And a lot of the stuff they can change regardless of the environment. Just having a sprint report, right? That's so simple and it would add so much value. And you like whatever happens externally, like they can do that.
Yeah. 100%. I think now's a good time to wrap up. I want to thank you for jumping on. I want to thank Daniel Lee for being here today. I love chatting with you guys because you're both objective, right? And we're all bullish on the project. We're all here because we love the project. We have our own reasons for being here. But it's important to also take a critical eye to things, be objective, because denial gets you nowhere, right? So that being said, peace out, everyone. Thank you, Kay, for jumping on this. Thanks, Daniel Lee. Guys, thank you for joining us in the chat. We will catch you guys next time.